came in. Our kids got, this is Catherine, she got bus mitzvah here.
Oh, I put you both back as this.
Yes.
The first time I ever heard, maybe 15 years ago, I lived on the line.
And I said, it's changed the whole hell of a lot.
Yeah.
And I like the red.
Oh, yeah.
I like red behind it.
Yeah.
And Catherine's back in town visiting, so we figured it was fun. So we would guess. Thanks for welcoming us.
Oh. Chapter.
Shalom, how are you?
Doing well, thanks. How about you?
Not too bad. Tired, but otherwise
Yeah,
okay.
it's been a long day.
Okay.
I told Rabbi we wanted to make a point of coming tonight because we're going to be in Oklahoma for the next 2 months.
Oh, okay.
You know, so we're
6 weeks technically.
sort of. But,
Was the color coordination intentional or accidental?
Are we? Oh no.
well,
It was an accident.
Okay.
because I'm working for organ donation, today was the whole blue and green day because those are the
So
colors.
yours was
So
intentional, but
Mine was intentional. So
Mine was
I
a
wore
complete
blue.
accident.
there you go.
I wore
No.
blue and carried this because I couldn't find any green in there. So I thought that was close, but I didn't know
No,
what he was
no.
going to wear.
And I was in a terrible hurry because I was at home and I had to come up and pick up Sarah from work. So and I was loading the kiln and so I was running around and so I just like ran into the bedroom and threw on what was there.
So, no,
So when exactly do you all leave?
on Wednesday.
Okay.
A little synagogue in Tulsa, Temple Israel.
I am aware of the synagogue, Reform Synagogue in Tulsa. I've been there myself, but I know 2 or 3 people who have worked there at various points. I don't think any of them are there now, though.
Very cool.
We went there
So-
once when we were here a couple of weeks ago. Didn't get anything set up.
They had one of my teachers actually who was a kind of an adjunct professor at HUC, would occasionally fly down there like once a month or something like that to help them with music stuff.
The
yourself off unless you want them renewed.
There must have been some mixed up. Maybe you have it on the flyer.
So say what it is, no big deal. It's no big deal.
All it means is that sometimes when we have a certain list of how many packages and stuff like that, it's just not one time or something like that.
Something goes,
Might be a little bit.
yeah, something, and then it's just that it's still knowledge is good.
We were listening to a song called Weekdays, which is always really little. Are you going down to say I'm up to work? She said, no. I said, you getting married?
Music is not a
Wait, I have to get combobulated. Hey, you, how are you?
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I hope it's warm in here for you. I hope the community grows warm together as we offer Shabbat for worship. I hope that you who are joining us online are also in a warm place, in a good place, in a place that really allows us all to worship and be together, even though we're in a number of different locations, to worship together as one community. Just for those people joining us online, you should see the video description, and there are a couple of links that will be helpful for you there. One is a link to our prayer book that takes you to a flip book version of our prayer book, Mishkan Tefillah. There is a link for tonight's program and a link for a supplement tonight. And I think that there's also, well, that's part of the program. I don't know how that worked exactly. But there is also a link for a discussion guide later on for a discussion that we'll have with everybody here in the congregation as part of our worship later on as well. And for those here in the congregation, you should have the program, you should have a supplement which has some words and music that are not in the prayer book, and you should have, again, a stapled discussion guide that we'll be getting to later on. But for right now, we are here together, and we begin by bringing us all to the same place at the same time. Cantor?
I don't know that we've sung this melody together before, so we'll start as just as a nigun, and it'll come back maybe a couple of times in our worship this evening. Begins like this. Yai lai yai lai 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 ya da 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 lai 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 yai lai yai lai 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 ya da lai la lai 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 yai lai yai lai 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 ya da lai la lai 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 yai lai yai lai 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 ya da lai la lai 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 lai. Same thing, but just one note different at the beginning. Instead of yai lai, it'll be yai lai. Let's sing together. Yai lai 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 ya da lai la lai 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 yai lai yai lai 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 ya da lai la lai 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 ya da lai ya da lai yai lai da da lai ya da lai ya da lai
As the dark of night descends, all of us together enter this realm that we call Shabbat. It is a day of rest, menucha, and our weekly ability to renew our spirits. And however we accomplish that, however we can renew the energy that has been taken from us in the last 6 days, we try to do that. because we who live in this world, and all of us in these communities have lived in this world for some years, whenever we live through a week that's trying, that's difficult, that brings us difficult news, we know how hard that is to replenish ourselves. And yet, that is the importance of this day. And the pathways toward our places of rest, of menucha, will certainly go in different directions. But as members of this holy community, and whether we are here together in person or we are together with those who are online, let us help one another find the comfort of this day and place. Let us be present for one another. Our service begins on page 128 as we offer these words of Shabbat HaMalkah.
Some of you may know that that'll help. There we go. Some of you may know that this melody, which is pretty widely sung in Jewish communities across the world, and especially in Europe and North America, that for the last several weeks, as we have been trying to process and react to the events in Ukraine, that I've been offering this tune, this widely known tune that traces its origins to Odessa. Both the poet and the person who wrote the melody were both residents of the city of Odessa, then a part of the Russian Empire, when this text and this melody were composed. And so we hope, as we offer this melody for Shabbat HaMalkah, that those who are in that region can find those moments of peace and rest, as we hope for that for ourselves too. Hachama merosh ha'ilanot nistalka bo'u v'netze likrat Shabbat HaMalkah Hinei yoredet HaKedosha HaBerucha Ve'ima malachim tzva shalom umnucha Boi boi HaMalkah Boi boi HaKala Shalom Aleichem Malachei HaShalom. The sun on the treetops no longer is seen. Come gather to welcome the Sabbath, our Queen. Behold her descending, the holy, the blessed, and with her the angels of peace and of rest. Draw near, and here abide. Draw near, O Sabbath bride. Peace also to you, you angels of peace.
On page 121, let us offer the first meditation here together on top of 121. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us, as their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner, lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Almighty God, grant us and all of our loved ones a chance to truly rest on this Shabbat. May the light of these Shabbat candles drive out from among us the spirit of anger, the spirit of harm, the spirit of annoyance and irritation. In its place, may we come to find joy, peace, solace, and blessing. We continue our observance of Shabbat with Kabbalat Shabbat, which is the receiving of Shabbat in music, in joy, and song, and prayer. We begin on page 134, Neharot Imcha Uhaf, on page 134. We'll get there.
Starting at the 5th line.
Thank you, Cantor. 5th line from the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, 6th line from the bottom. 6th line from the
Fifth
top.
from the top.
7th from the top. It doesn't matter. It's there. Neharot Imcha Uhaf.
But we're starting with the text Yiram Hayam. Yiram Hayam umelo.
Yiram Hayam Umelo.
Yiram Hayam umelo.
Yiram Hayam Umelo.
El v'yoshveva. Yiram Hayam umelo. Yiram Hayam umelo.
Yiram Hayam Umelo.
Yiram Hayam umelo.
Yiram Hayam Umelo.
El v'yoshveva. Yiram Hayam umelo. Neharot imcha uchaf yelelelelelelem yachararim yiraneinu. 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 Yiram hayam umelo.
Yiram Hayam Umelo.
Yiram hayam umelo.
Yiram Hayam Umelo.
Tiber v'yoshveva. Yiram hayam umelo. Neharot imcha uchaf yelelelelelelem yachararim yiraneinu. Neharot imcha uchaf yelelelelelelem yachararim yiraneinu. Yiram hayam umelo.
Yiram Hayam Umelo.
Yiram hayam umelo.
Yiram Hayam Umelo.
Nivel v'yoshveva. Yiram hayam umelo.
On page 138, Lecha Dodi, we can agree because we wrote these numbers down. We're going to be offering verses 1, 2, 5, and 9 this evening. Lecha Dodi on page 138, 1, 2, 5, and 9.
Yalalalai lecha dodi. Yalalalai likat kala. Yalalalai penei Shabbat. Penei Shabbat nekavela. Yalalalai lecha dodi. Yalalalai likat kala. Yalalalai penei Shabbat. Penei Shabbat nekavela. Shamor v'zachor v'di'ur echad. Ishmi והביאנו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת, לך אדוני, לקראת כלה, פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת, לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם ישועה. סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה, לך אדוני, לקראת כלה, פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך ומאורי, אורי אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך אדוני, לקראת כלה, פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לך אדוני, לקראת כלה, פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה. לך אדוני, לקראת כלה, פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה.
On page 140, we come to a special psalm for the day of Shabbat. We begin with Mizmor LeDavid at the top, Mizmor Shir Le'Yom HaShabbat, and then we skip down to the indented paragraph Tzadik Katamar.
I'll just lead us in. Mizmor Shir Le'Yom HaShabbat, Tzadik Katamar Yifrach, Ke'erez Balvanon Yizkeh, Shetulhim Beveit Adonai, Bechatzrot Eloheinu Yahweh. Yashar Adonai, Tzuri, Tzuri, Velo Avlatabo. And we'll be continuing on the next page with part of Psalm 93, which is technically also the psalm for Friday, but also because it is the psalm beyond the psalm for the day of Shabbat in our order, in our prayer book here. It also symbolizes a little bit of a taste of the world to come where everything is Shabbat. It's one of my favorite psalms. It has all of this imagery of water and crashing of waves. It's a beautiful text, and so this melody that we sang at the beginning of our service was written for this text, beginning with that bottom section with the words Nas'u Neharot Adonai. And so we'll start as a nigun, and then we'll see if we can fit it with the text. I, 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 Listen for a moment. Nas'u neharot Adonai, Nas'u neharot kolam. Nas'u neharot Adonai, Yisu neharot dochyam. Nas'u neharot Adonai, Nas'u neharot kolam. Nas'u neharot Adonai, Yisu neharot dochyam. Mikolot ma'im rabim, adirim mishpereyam. Mikolot ma'im rabim, adir bamarom Adonai. Mikolot ma'im rabim, adirim mishpereyam. Mikolot ma'im rabim, adir bamarom Adonai. Yadonai, 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 Eidotecha emnu me'od, leveitcha navakotesh, Adonai leorech yamim. Eidotecha emnu me'od, leveitcha navakotesh, Adonai leorech yamim. Yadonai, 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 Yadonai,
The light that now appears in the world, even after the sun has set, is the light that really emanates from each of us to others, both in these two communities that we are worshiping with together tonight, and in our homes, in the places where we work, in the places that we market, in between friendships and between family members. May we offer willingly and beautifully this light to others, and may we assure one another that we all have value and integrity and worth, because that is indeed the inherent right of every human being. We begin Ma'ariv services now on page 146. We invite you to rise for Baruch Hu. Again, page 146.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam va'ed.
On page 148, at the middle of the page, we offer this first bracha together. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tsebaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening.
El chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed, baruch atah Adonai, ha'ma'ariv aravim.
Amen. On one of the supplemental sheets, the single supplemental sheet that you have tonight, we have Ahavat Olam in this English version.
This beautiful interpretation by Rabbi Rami Shapiro. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We are embraced by arms that find us, even when we are hidden from ourselves. Try that with me. We are embraced by arms that find us, even when we are hidden from ourselves. This melody throughout. We are touched by fingers that soothe us, even when we are too proud for soothing. We are counseled by voices that guide us, even when we are too embittered to hear. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We are supported by hands that uplift us, even in the midst of a fall. We are urged on by eyes that meet us, even when we are too weak for meeting. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We, embraced, touched, soothed, and counseled. Ours are the arms, the fingers, the voices. Ours are the hands, the eyes, the smiles. We are loved by an unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love Baruch Ata Adonai, Ohev Amo Israel.
We continue on page 152.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod, Shem Kevod, Malchuto, Leolam, Leolam Va'ed.
You may be seated, and we continue on page 154 at the top.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובפגומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני Adonai Elohechem.
As we offer Michamocha and we think about the holiday of Passover just concluding, the prayer on page 157 at the top really sums up the kind of world we live in. And I invite us all to offer this together at the top of 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Page 158.
And so we're bringing back this same tune because the text of Psalm 93, which had this imagery of the crashing of waves, and this text with also connections to the crossing of the Red Sea from Shirat Hayam, the Song of the Sea, the rolling of the waves. We'll just kind of get that tune back into our bones for a moment, and then we'll put it with Micha Mocha. Adonai, Nedar Bakodesh. Once more. Chamocha Bailim Adonai. Kamocha Nedar Bakodesh. Nora Tehilot Osef Eleh. Nora Tehilot Osef Eleh. Yadadai, 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 Yadadai. Alechutecha Ra'u Vanecha Bokeayam Bifnei Moshe uMiriam Zeili Anu ve'amru Adonai Imloch Leolam va'ed Yadadai, 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 Yadadai. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
The kinds of chaotic things that happened to us during the week have now ended, and we can leave them a little behind. But frankly, the effect that they have on our psyche and our hearts still carries with us as we enter this day of Shabbat. So when we offer Hashkivenu, a prayer that is only offered at nighttime, we seek not only the protection from what might be the obvious dangers of nighttime, but also from the anxiety that the week's pressures have given us. And so I ask that each one of us here extend to the others around us perhaps a circle of sanctity, a circle of safety, a circle of security at this time, so that we can at least go into this Shabbat and go into our lives to be protected and to know that there are people about us who care about us. On page 160, we continue with Hashkivenu.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. 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 Ushmor tzeitenu uvoenu lechaim u'shalom ve'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim.
You know, sometimes we know what we want in life, and sometimes we need the prompting of words on the page or the influence of other people around us. But however we find security in our hearts and in our lives, let us be sure to offer ourselves the decent portion as well as those people around us. We have to be nice to people around us and to ourselves as well.
Ushmot Tzeitzenu Uvoenu Lechaim u'Shalom Be'ata ve'ad olam Baruch atah Adonai Haporei Sukkot Shalom Haporei Sukkot Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol hamo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim Amen. Amen.
Offering tefillah, offering prayer, is a challenge. And it's a challenge because some of us offer prayer in one direction, others offer a prayer in a different direction, depending upon where we see either deity lies or authority lies, or where our hearts direct us. So each of us here is perhaps offering worship, offering the words in our hearts for a different reason, in a different direction, and yet we all are here tonight, online and present. We are all here worshiping together. Let that community nature of what we do also help propel us along, and let us be sure to be with one another as we offer our words and our hearts in prayer. The tefillah begins on page 164. We invite you to rise. Page 164.
Adonai sefatai tiftachu fi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise.
166.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei Hakol, Ve'zocher Chasdei Avot ve'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshia u'Magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, ve'ezrat Sarah.
168.
Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakol atah Rav ve'Hoshia, Morid hatal, Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofei cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'al gevurot, Umidom elach, Melech memit umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman ata lehachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei HaKol.
Amen. Page 170.
אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
The challenge I offer each of us tonight is to answer this question. Is it up to us to change everything in life? Or, as maybe one of the rabbis has told us, we start with ourselves, then we start with our families, and then we continue with our community, and then we continue with maybe the world after that, and to see how far and wide our influence goes. Whatever choices we make, I know, and I'm confident, that we are all worshiping and we are praying for the strength to make grand changes as well as intimate and personal changes. May we all find success. We offer silent prayer now, and we can remain standing or be seated as you like. We'll meet up with one another on page 180.
Teaching from the end of the first chapter of Pirkei Avot. On three things the world is sustained: on truth, on justice, and on peace. Al shlosha devarim ha'olam kayam. Al shlosha devarim ha'olam kayam. Al ha'emet ve'al hadin ve'al ha'shalom. Al ha'emet ve'al hadin ve'al ha'shalom, ve'al ha'shalom. Al shlosha devarim ha'olam kayam. Al shlosha devarim ha'olam kayam. Al ha'emet ve'al hadin ve'al ha'shalom. Al ha'emet ve'al hadin ve'al ha'shalom, ve'al ha'shalom. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru amen. La 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 la. Oh, say shalom bimroma. Uyase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru Amen.
We oftentimes say we're going to bless the wine, or we're going to bless the bread, or we're going to bless the whatever, when in reality, we're not blessing the wine or not blessing the bread. We're actually thanking God for this gift of sanctity that allows us to share the holiness of the day, or the food that we are about to partake in, or the joy of community that we get to share. So on page 123, we do thank God for the sanctity of this day by offering Kiddush along with Cantor Nemi.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh bereishit, ki hu yom techila lemikra'ei kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim. Kivanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol hamim, ve'shabbat kodeshecha, ve'ahava uvratzon, inchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh hashabbat l'chaim. As we've mentioned earlier this evening, some of those difficulties do move us and do affect us of the week gone by, that is, the difficulties because of the war in Ukraine. And so at the bottom of the front page of our supplement, there is a prayer for peace, which we've done in the past couple of months now, sadly, here in our community. We offer it, and I say sadly because we've had to offer this prayer. And so we offer these words responsively, as indeed we commit ourselves to the continuing search for peace. God of justice and peace, we pray for the people of Ukraine today. Give them strength and courage to withstand the attacks, to strive for life, and to persevere in the face of the evil and cowardice of the oppressor. We pray that the desire for a better tomorrow dominates the thought of all who live in that region, so that wisdom, discernment, and compassion all guide their designs and actions.
We pray for all people of good conscience upon whom fall the physical, emotional, or psychological pressures of undeserved war.
May the cause of humanity, the reality that makes us all one family, direct our steps, so that we see the other as an extension of ourselves, beings worthy of dignity and blessing.
And grant us peace, your most precious gift, and enable us to be its messenger unto all the world. Please join me. For even as you bless our country as a stronghold and advocate of peace, please strengthen the bonds of friendship and harmony among the inhabitants of all lands. Plant virtue and nobility in every soul, And may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. We praise you, O God, giver of peace. On page 371 is Misha Beirach. It is our prayer also for healing and wholeness, for people who are ill in the hospital, for souls that are depleted and broken, for people who need a special amount of care and concern and embrace from their families and friends. In our Temple Beth El healing list, we have almost 100 names this week, and there may be names of others, people whom you know about, for whom you would like to offer a prayer. And is our custom, in a moment, I will ask you to mention the names of people whom you're thinking about, if you would like, people who need these special prayers of healing and wholeness. Again, we don't understand the ways of healing, and we certainly don't understand how God operates in all of this. But we do know that when someone in the world knows that a community like this one is praying on their behalf, that helps to strengthen their own internal powers of healing and perhaps gives them uplift enough to work through and to help in the healing process. So if there are people whom you think about, we invite you to offer these names now.
Don Shapiro, Tobafega Batsvi.
Steve Viola. Rachel Karch. Ralph Bernstein.
Dear God, aloud and in our hearts, we name those facing illness and pain. We join our prayers to the prayers of all who love them. On page 371, at that indented middle section, Misha Beirach.
Misha Beirach Avotenu Mikor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha Beirach Imotenu Mikor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. So this evening, in place of a more formal address or more formal remarks, I thought I would take some time and go over some things that you have actually a handout of this. It's a handout. It refers to the war in Ukraine, but only sort of obliquely. But it really speaks to issues of war that Judaism asks us to think about. And I will be talking about that in a moment. First, the term genocide is something that somehow we think we all know what genocide is, and yet, you know, in the history of our world, there has been a discussion at the United Nations about the word genocide. So I want to call your attention to page 1 in the handout, at the top of which it says the war in Ukraine, how to understand it, how to respond. And this, by the way, won't give you any guidelines necessarily for answering those questions, but I hope it gives us some time to think about it. But we should know this, that the word genocide was first coined by a Polish lawyer named Raphael Lemkin in a 1944 book, Axis Rule in Occupied Europe. And you can see the derivation of how he put this word together, the Greek prefix genos, meaning race or tribe, and the Latin suffix sede, meaning killing.
And genocide was first recognized as a crime under international law in 1946 by the United Nations General Assembly. And down below, if you are watching at home also or online, you should also have, of course, this handout. You can click on the link, which has the word genocide in it, if I'm not mistaken, or the war in Ukraine, rather. That's where the link is. And you see that down below on page 1, there are 5 particular criteria by which genocide is defined, right? Killing members of some group, that is a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. The causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of this group. Deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. Imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. And forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. Now, this is just, again, for our information. You can see at the top of that page, if you go to the United Nations website, all that information is there. This is really downloaded from that website. On page 2, just to sort of add to it, there are certain further definitions and clarifications. But a couple of things is what I wanted to call your attention to. On page 2, the second paragraph from the bottom, the intent of genocide, which apparently you have to prove in the International Criminal Court or in the International Court of Justice, is something that's very hard to do, says the United Nations. To constitute genocide, there must be a proven intent on the part of perpetrators to physically destroy a national, ethnical, that's the word that they use, racial or religious group. Cultural destruction does not suffice, nor does an intention to simply disperse a group. And by the way, there's a footnote on page 1 that takes you to a website. You might be interested in it. It is a website that is digitally trying to preserve the cultural heritage of Ukraine, if, God forbid, that there were much more destruction than there already is. So that's an interesting website for you to look at. Again, that's footnote number 2 on the first page here. In addition, I'm going back now to page 2, second paragraph, last sentence. In addition, case law has associated intent with the existence of a state or organizational plan or policy, even if the definition of genocide in international law does not include that element. So intent is something that they have to prove, I suppose. And you can see the rest of the definitions here. So I am curious to know, what is your reaction to these definitions? What is your reaction to perhaps how these definitions fit into what it is that we're witnessing today? And if you'd like to talk on mic, please answer. We can pass this around. If you don't mind doing that, just keep it sort of, distance and point it right at your mouth. You don't hold it like this, hold it right at your mouth like that. Yes?
I don't remember exactly when, but I think it was back in the 30s. There was a movement in mental institutions to sterilize mentally ill children so that they couldn't propagate and have, pass on their mental illness. Would that be considered genocide? Because they weren't actually going after an ethnic group. They were going after anyone that was mentally ill, a physical group.
Interesting definition, interesting question. I can't answer that question particularly, but if it fits one of these criteria at the front, right? Imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group or forcibly transferring children of the group to another group, I think you probably would want to say who is the group that is being targeted here. And if it's children with mental illness, that may or may not be genocide. But again, yeah, it could be if it's a race or an ethnical group or something like that.
In the border crisis.
Where, sorry?
The border crisis
Yes.
with immigrants. Some children of the immigrants were placed with families all across the country that they had no reason to be with. They were separated from their parents. It says, one of the definitions was forcibly transferring children of the group to another group.
Well, exactly right. It happened here at the border, as we've witnessed in the United States. It's happened, perhaps, it is alleged and purported to have happened on the borders of Ukraine as well, that the Russians might have transferred children, families, out of Ukraine and into Russia, perhaps. That's what I understand. Yeah, here.
I do have one question. What is the need to, let me back up. You look at all the 5 criteria. What is the need to say this is genocide when each one of these 5 criteria are appalling?
Right. So the question is, why do we have to call it genocide, right? Is that what you're asking? Why do some want to identify it as genocide? Why is there that desire?
What's the necessity?
Why is that necessity? That's going to be a matter of opinion, I think, for everybody who answers that question. I think I'm going to open that question up, and we'll see what people say about it. I have my opinion about it, but we can go around and get responses to that question.
It's completely off the top of my head. I would imagine that one possible reason could be to help determine consequences, right? That you have to kind of define what the quote-unquote crime is in order to be able to determine what, if any, consequences there might need to be imposed upon the perpetrator.
I think part of the reason why we pursue the clarity in our definition of what genocide is to face the crime with open eyes and not allow those perpetrators the ability to escape acknowledgement of their evil and their choices through technicalities or non-specificity. I think it's very important that there be incredible specificity and that we call things as we see them, causing us to be more realistic and more honest with the way things should be perceived.
If we're talking about Russia's actions with the Ukraine and talking about genocide, if that were to be proven, what is the result of that in the United Nations? I don't know the answer.
That's a really wonderful question, and I think to add to your comments, I think that history has to record the result of that judgment, whatever it happens to be. Again, I think, as I was reading, to be proven genocide, it has to be taken to the International Court of Justice, and I believe that Russia has signed on to the International Criminal Code, and so in theory, Russia is a party and agrees to that code. So who knows? But I think it's an excellent point.
I just wanted to add the case of the Uyghurs in China.
Thank you.
And the interesting twist, I think, that you highlighted, that cultural destruction is not considered genocide. In other words, the re-education or the forced re-education of population, as awful as that is, doesn't meet the standards because it is destroying a culture rather than a people.
Thank you. Other comments? Yes, please.
Well, I think also the fact that there's this careful definition is more for the lawyers and courts, and I think it's kind of crude to say, but if it swims like a duck and it quacks like a duck and it flies like a duck, well, we can tell in our heart that it's a duck. And the rest is for the lawyers and the judgment to be determined.
Thanks, Dan.
The fifth point, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. Well, what happened on our southern border where children were separated from their mothers and they were put into a confinement and then they were taken in by foster parents until they could be reunited with their parents. Does that mean that the politicians that created that problem or created that decision to separate people are guilty of genocide?
That's a wonderful question. Certainly, when you separate children with the hope of reuniting them, that's one thing. But I think one has to think about whether that was even the thought. This is my opinion, right? Whether that was the thought in the mind of the people who made that separation and that transfer. And I'm not sure that it was, personally. I just don't know.
Yeah, I'm thinking
Hold it
that,
like this, there you
I'm
go.
thinking that we have a moral obligation to identify these things. And if we don't have it in writing, then we have no way to follow through. And so it brings us back to the basis of morality. And
Right, that gets back to your question, I think, right? And the last thing, yes, I'm sorry, one more back there. Please.
Just a thought that before physical violence occurs, there is the dehumanization of a group, and that the treating of that group as less than human makes it possible. And even the current situation in Ukraine, the Russians are using exactly that kind of language.
Thank you. Mark.
I have a couple comments. One, that this would definitely apply to what we did to Native Americans in this country, because specifically forcibly transferring children, we did that. We took them out of their homes, out of their culture, and put them in orphanages and schools,
right.
And we tried to take away their culture. The thing about Ukraine is, I hope we don't just. It's critical that Putin and the people there pay a permanent price, and that if we try to get it on genocide and it doesn't win, we figure out there's so many other things, war crimes, war of aggression, but the basic thing is they have to pay the price, and it has to be so that no one ever wants it, no one will do this again, and that we just can't get them let off if we can't make that definition. That's.
Go ahead.
Real quick, because we're going to go on with our service, I'm sorry. But I'm still blown away by having the UN to have to approve this. And it just, that blows me away. One, and two, as Mark and I were talking, that they're basically the Russian people and what they're doing. It's one thing, as Mark said the other night when watching the news, it's like the Nazis, here we are. And we can't just say it's Putin, but it's the people, and it's tough.
I would say, in my opinion, I think that the Russian people, many of them, are being sadly misled, and because of the way that their economy is, that they're sadly being choked, and they're being strangled by a lack of news as well. But let me go on, and let me offer you exactly what's here. Also, if you notice on page 3 and 4, and we're not going to go over this in detail tonight, but I thought I would offer it to you in any case. What is a Jewish definition of war, and when do Jews get involved in war, and when do they not? And so I thought I would offer you a handy little compendium, which it's not complete, and it's not, because the rabbis have so many different opinions about what constitutes war. But there are two kinds of war in Judaism and Jewish understanding. And one is called milchemet reshut, or a discretionary or elective war. And these are wars that you may go to at your choice, or the people of Israel can engage in these wars if they wanted to. And, it has no particular religious significance. And one of the rabbis has very importantly said that the performance of everyday mitzvot is commanded. There's no exemption from them. You'll see why that's important later on. But then down below, the second row across is a milchemet mitzvah or milchemet chova, which means or translates as an obligatory war or a war that is commanded by tradition. And these are included there are the wars that Israel was mandated to participate in to conquer the promised land. They could be a war of self-defense that Israel, the nation state of Israel in recent years, has used to launch its own wars. And also it refers, and a number of rabbis have said, it refers to the ongoing war that we are supposed to have against Amalek. Amalek, of course, is the people that attacked Israel just as they came out of Egypt. And the Torah, in 2 places, commands that we have to maintain a constant vigil against Amalek. And the Midrash of our people has identified Amalek as individuals and nations that have had it in for the Jews. And whether that's Haman of the Purim story, whether that's Pharaoh, of course, that was before the nation of Amalek attacked us in the time range of the Torah, or whether it's Torquemada or Khmelnytsky or Hitler, or some people say Arafat. Yasser Arafat would fit that mold. This is an eternal war that is mandatory that we fight. And then if we take any kind of skirmish or any kind of situation, we might match it up with the various criteria to see that as Jews, how do we look at war, and when is war discretionary, and when is war obligatory? So I'm going to leave that to you. Any last comments before we conclude and continue with our worship? Cantor, you had something to say.
Oh, it's quite all right.
You have your own microphone anyway, but go ahead.
No, I'm
Okay. One last comment here. Okay, Ken, go ahead.
Someone mentioned the Russian people. But what's happening in Ukraine isn't the Russian people, it's the Russian soldiers commanded by Russian officers who are following the lead of their commander-in-chief, I guess.
That's another problem. I think we were talking before about the people in Russia who are the normal citizens, who are suffering because all of the money is being spent both for military and being misled, right.
It should be noted that there are no longer any independent media organizations operating within Russian borders, that all of the independent Russia media has essentially fled the country.
Thank you for all of your comments, because it's so important to be able to have discussions like this whenever we can. And goodness knows how long these crises are going to face us in our world. But if it's not one thing, it's another. But we're so glad to be able to speak here tonight. We now come, I believe, on the supplement, on the back side of the supplement. Another important community moment we have is the counting of the Omer, the period between Passover and Shavuot, or the period between the second day of Passover and the Shavuot is 49 days. And it's during that time that the chronology of the Torah records the Israelites moving from Egypt to Mount Sinai, a time when the Israelites were in the desert, coming to a place of revelation, coming to a place of recognition of their obligations as members of the Israelite nation. And so we count those days in an official way, hoping that as we get nearer to Mount Sinai, at least in our minds, that we also understand better what is our connection to Torah and what is our connection to our people.
I would also note that there is a midrash that talks about how the time of the counting of the Omer was a time of great uncertainty during the year, of agricultural uncertainty, that if a wind blew from the north, that the olive crops might fail, and if a wind blew from the west, that some other crop might fail. And so there was this tenuousness of this time between Pesach and Shavuot, this kind of unsettledness. And so the counting became a way of rooting oneself in time, in that kind of time of uncertainty, which I think is something that we can all find useful, even if it's not necessarily crops that we're worried about, but other matters. Yai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, 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 lai. And those of you who are not with us for Community Seder or recently, or may need a little bit of help recalling from last year, we'll do this my turn, your turn for this first time, this first counting of the Omer on Shabbat in this season. Hineni muchan umezuman, Hineni muchan umezuman, lekayem mitzvah taseh, lekayem mitzvah taseh. All together. Hineni muchan umezuman, lekayem mitzvah taseh, shel sfirat haomer, shel sfirat haomer, shel sfirat haomer, shel sfirat haomer, sheva Shabbatot, timimot tiena, sheva Shabbatot, timimot tiena, sheva Shabbatot, timimot tiena, sheva Shabbatot, timimot tiena. Yai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, 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 lai.
Behold, we are all prepared and ready to perform this mitzvah of counting the Omer. The counting shall be 7 complete weeks.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu, b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, al sfirat haomer, al sfirat haomer, al sfirat haomer, al sfirat haomer.
Praised are you, eternal our God, sovereign of the universe, who makes us holy with sacred obligations, commanding us to count the Omer. Hayom shiv'a yamim shehem shavua echad la'omer. Today is the 7th day, making 1 week of counting of the Omer.
Sheva Shabbatot, timimot tiena, Sheva Shabbatot, timimot tiena. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Yada, lai, lai, lai.
We continue on page 586 with Aleinu, page 586. We invite the community to rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adon hakol,
לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל. ושכינת זו בגובהי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Please be seated. We continue together at the top of 589. Please join one another. Let the time not be distant, O God, when all shall turn to you in love, when corruption and evil shall give way to integrity and goodness, when superstition shall no longer enslave the mind, nor idolatry blind the eye. O may all created in your image become one in spirit and one in friendship, forever united in your service. Then shall your realm be established on earth, and the word of your prophet fulfilled. Adonai will reign forever and ever, on page 591.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
On page 593. The light of life is a finite flame. Like Shabbat candles, life is kindled, it burns, it glows, it is radiant with warmth and beauty, but soon it fades. Its substance is consumed, and it is no more. In light we see, in light we are seen. The flames dance, and our life burns down in gutters. There's an end to the flames. We see no more and are no more seen. Yet we do not despair, for we are more than a memory, slowly fading into the darkness. With our lives, we give life. Something of us can never die, and we move in the eternal cycle of darkness and death, of light and life. At this moment in our worship, we call to mind those who died in recent days and people whom we remember with love and affection, whose yahrzeits occur at this time. If you are present tonight in mourning or observing a yahrzeit, we invite you to rise as the name of your loved one is recited. But these are those whom we've taken into our hearts with our own. The recent deaths in our community and connected with our community. We remember Dr. Michael E. Becker, a member of this community, husband of Lee Becker, father of Ben Becker, and grandfather of Miriam and Max. We remember also Rochelle Frank, wife of Sherman Frank of blessed memory, aunt of Russell Frank and Andrew Frank. And these are the yahrzeiten that we remember at this time in continuing devotion to their memories. We recall with love Riva Abramovitz, Bobby Sim Kaufman, Miriam Davidson, Edward A. Deutschkron, Robert Joseph Edelman, Arnold Engman, Ingrid W. Fantel, Carol M. Fells, Iz Fine, Samuel Flexer, Ezra Frank, Albert Geller, David Armin Galden, Alice Hutchinson, Lester Cantor, Paul Katz, Bob Klaskin, Robert Levine, Paul B. Levy, Mo Lassan, Frank Maidenberg, Harvey Malofsky, Claire Mansour, Lucille K. Martin, Oscar Max, Hilda A. Morgenstein, Mayor Novick, Isaac and Esther Rosenberg, Yechiel and Samuel Rosenberg, Louis Roth, Gary Schmidt, Max P. Silverman, David Slafer, Rose Steinig, Zachary Tabak, Bernard Winston, Esther Waldenberg, and Marion Goodall. There may be also members of this worship community who are remembering others whose names weren't on our Kaddish list. People might be from out of town or new to the community, and if you are remembering someone and would like to add your loved one's name to this list of memory, we invite you to do so.
David Ashkenazi,
Peter Wallach, Baruch Ben David.
Letty Zell.
Sanctifying their names and connecting them and all of us together, we now, as one community, rise and turn to page 589, and we recite together the words of the mourner's Kaddish. 598, thank you. 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, ve'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uvyomechon, uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, va'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach le'alam ulalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal, shemei d'kudsha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru amen. May God send peace to all who mourn and comfort those who are bereaved and those who remember on this night. And we say, amen. Amen. Please be seated. So in a few moments, we will conclude our service, and then we are invited to partake of the Oneg Shabbat in two ways. One, if you would like to linger a bit, we have an Oneg Shabbat in the community court for folks. And if you would like to take an Oneg to go, we are also offering the large cookies from Just Bakery. That'll be on the table. As you exit into the foyer, you can take a cookie and grab it and go if that is your desire. However you would like to have an oneg tonight or not. We want to thank for sponsoring the Oneg Shabbat tonight. We thank Temple Beth El Sisterhood, who has always been so gracious with their sponsorship, although we've had many different sponsors of Oneg Shabbats as well. So thank you to the sisterhood for tonight. We also want to thank Ken and Tam Kaplan, Tamara Sue Kaplan, I'm sorry, that's what it says here, I have to get it right, for being our greeter and our contact checking list tonight. And speaking of that, just a few brief announcements about that. Thank you for wearing masks properly here at Temple Beth El. Thank you for being properly vaccinated. As you know, that's a requirement for coming into our building. Please watch your emails, because some of these conditions may change slightly in the next couple of months, but just watch and see what our task force on staying safer in changing times lets us do, and then allows us to proceed in one direction or another. And this is just a brief note regarding contact tracing. If you test positive for COVID-19 within 5 days of being here with us at Temple Beth El, please contact Stephanie Kushner, our executive director, because if we receive information of anyone who has presented a positive test within that 5-day period, anonymously, of course, we will notify you who are present here tonight that someone here tonight tested positive. So please, if you haven't signed in, if we didn't know you were here, please sign in on the contact list so that we know how to contact you in case we need to. I want to thank my Bima partner, Cantor Jacob Namey, and thank you, Temple Beth El, for allowing us to have this wonderful worship tonight. Tomorrow morning, there will be Torah study at 9 a.m. on Zoom. I'm leading tomorrow morning on the Torah portion of Acharei Mot. which is tomorrow. It's Leviticus chapter 16 to 18. Also tomorrow morning here in our sanctuary, you are invited to worship with us as we welcome Ben Stern to our bima as a bar mitzvah. He's the son of Nessie and Walter Stern. So please join us for that wonderful occasion. Next Friday evening, services will be at 7:30 p.m. As normal. And next Saturday morning, on the 30th, there will be Torah study on the Parashat of Kedoshim, led by Cantor Nami. And at 10:30 a.m., you can join us a week from tomorrow as we welcome Scarlett Goldberg, who is the daughter of Susanna and Jamie Goldberg. She'll be coming to our bima as a bat mitzvah. There are a lot of other announcements on the back sheet of the program tonight. And I think with that, we'll turn to our closing song. Oh, thank you. I will. I didn't have that on my announcement. Yeah. Next week, by the way, Friday evening, on April 29th, where am I? On April 29th, Alan Klugman, who is the director of the Jewish Federation, and Joe Shumo, who is the president of the Jewish Federation, will be speaking here. They just went to Poland and they spent 48 hours on the ground looking at the institutions that we support through our funds here in the community. Many of us have made special contributions to that fundraising effort, and they will let us see firsthand what they saw and shared they will share their experiences with us at that point. Thank you, Cantor.
So I'll make sure my microphone's back on. I'll refer you all to the bottom of the backside of the supplement, right below where we were using to count the Omer. You may have noticed that I sang this actually when we came out of silent prayer. There are many customs that some people follow during this time between Pesach and Shavuot. One of my favorites is that there are 6 Shabbatot, 6 Sabbaths between Pesach and Shavuot, and there are 6 chapters of Pirkei Avot, a collection of ethical teachings and wisdom in the Mishnah. And so there's a custom to actually take one chapter of Pirkei Avot to study each Shabbat. And so this, people might know the other verse. There's a verse toward the beginning of this first chapter of Pirkei Avot that says, Al shlosha devarim ha'olam omeid, on 3 things the world stands, al ha'torah, al ha'avodah, ve'al gemilut chasadim, on Torah, on worship or service, and on acts of love and kindness. But the chapter is actually bookended. At the end, there is this parallel sentiment that's expressed on 3 things the world is kayam, is established or sustained or lasts. On emet, truth. On din, judgment or justice. And al hashalom, on peace. This was a melody written by a beloved and well-known teacher in our movement, Cantor Jeff Klepper. Al shlosha devarim ha'olam kayam. Al shlosha devarim ha'olam kayam. Try that with me. Al shlosha devarim ha'olam kayam. Al shlosha devarim ha'olam kayam. Al ha'emet ve'al hadin ve'al ha'shalom. Al ha'emet ve'al hadin ve'al ha'shalom. Ve'al ha'shalom. Al shlosha devarim ha'olam kayam. Al shlosha devarim ha'olam kayam. Al ha'emet ve'al hadin ve'al ha'shalom. Al ha'emet ve'al hadin ve'al ha'shalom ve'al ha'shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
Be well.